You know those moments, maybe reading something ancient and it just clicks, something feels profoundly true. Well, that's exactly what we're hoping to explore today. We're diving into this really extraordinary source.
Yes, it's called 42 Tilakkhana Gathas. It's a discourse, a teaching from a highly respected Buddhist master.
And it was given, get this, back on August 1st, 2497 in the Buddhist era.
Which is 1954 for us using the Western calendar. So not that ancient in some ways, but tapping into timeless wisdom.
Right. And our mission today, really for you listening, is to unpack the truths about existence that are laid out in this specific text.
We're going to look closely at what the source calls the Tilakkhana Gathas, these characteristics of reality.
Yeah, which are just fundamental for understanding truth in Buddhist philosophy.
Absolutely. The text itself presents them as the ultimate truths: impermanence, suffering, and non-self. Foundational for insight. Deeply profound stuff.
And the whole framework, the core of this deep dive, revolves around these three characteristics of existence. We'll unpack each one.
And see how understanding them, truly seeing them, is presented here as a direct path. A path to profound purity.
Okay, so let's start there. You mentioned this teaching emphasizes these three characteristics, the Tilakkhana. What's so significant about this particular focus?
Well, what's really striking is how the master, right at the outset, frames this wisdom. It's presented as a path of pure insight.
Pure insight, as opposed
as distinct from, say, focusing primarily on moral conduct, sila, or deep concentration, samadhi. Those are vital, of course. But this is about seeing.
Seeing reality.
Seeing reality as it fundamentally is, not just thinking about it, but penetrating it with wisdom, with clarity.
Okay, let's get into them. The first one, impermanence, anicca. The text has this incredibly potent line. When one sees with wisdom that all formations are impermanent, one becomes weary of suffering. This is the path to purity.
Yeah.
Now, this word formations, sankhara, it sounds a bit technical. What are we actually talking about here? Why is understanding formations so key?
That's a really crucial point, sankhara. The text uses it very broadly. It basically means everything that's conditioned, everything that comes into being because of causes and conditions.
So pretty much everything we experience.
Pretty much, yeah. And to show just how pervasive this impermanence is, the text breaks sankhara down into three main categories.
Okay.
First, there's puññā visakhara. These are formations made by merit. Good karma, essentially.
Like human existence.
Exactly. Human existence, particularly being born. The text mentions Jambudvipa, our world system, with its countless universes. But it also includes the heavenly realms.
Oh, wow. So like the Deva realms.
Precisely. The 6 Deva heavens are listed: Kata, Maharajika, Tabatimsa, Yama, Tusita, and so on. And even higher, the 16 Rupa Brahma realms.
16?
Yes. And it even names some, like Brahma Parasaja, Abhasra, Vihafla, even the Asanyasada realm of non-perception, and the 5 Sudavasa realms, like Aviha and Akanitha.
Okay, those are specific. And those last ones?
Those are dwellings for anagami, the non-returners, beings very close to enlightenment.
So even these incredibly high, refined states, born of merit,
are still sankhara, still formations, and therefore the text insists still impermanent, constantly changing. That's the mind-blowing part.
Wow. Okay, so that's formations from merit. What's the second type?
The second is apuññā visakhara, formations made by demerit or negative karma.
So the opposite, like lower realms.
Exactly. Beings in states of suffering, ghosts or preta, asuras, sometimes translated as titans, animals obviously, and hell beings.
Hell beings. The text mentions specifics.
It does. It actually mentions 456 pits of suffering, which is incredibly detailed. And it notes something interesting. While hell beings, ghosts, asuras, aren't usually seen with human eyes, animals clearly are. They're part of our shared reality.
But the core point remains the same.
The core point is the same. These states, born from negative actions, are also impermanent. Not eternal damnation, but conditional, changing states.
Okay. Merit formations, demerit formations. What's the third?
The third is anicca visakhara, sometimes translated as imperturbable formations.
Imperturbable. Sounds stable.
Relatively speaking, perhaps. These refer to the 4 Arupa Brahma realms, the formless realms achieved through very deep meditation. Akasanānkayatana, Venankayatana, and so on.
States beyond ordinary form.
Yes, states not swayed by typical worldly ups and downs. So they seem steady, imperturbable. But, and this is the critical thing the text emphasizes, they are still sankhara, still conditioned formations.
Still impermanent.
Still ultimately within the cycle of change. arising and passing away.
So just to get this straight, whether we're talking highest heavens, lowest hells, our own human life, or even these super refined formless states, the master is saying all of it, everything conditioned, constantly shifting, arising, aging, breaking down, dissolving, nothing solid to grab onto anywhere.
That's exactly the insight of anicca. It's radically comprehensive. There's no escape from change within these conditioned realms. It's all flow, inherently unstable.
Wow. Okay. That understanding of universal impermanence, it naturally leads into the second characteristic, doesn't it? Suffering, or dukkha.
It does, directly. Because if everything is changing, trying to hold on to it, or expecting lasting satisfaction from it, well, that's where dukkha comes in.
And the core statement here is similar in structure. When one sees with wisdom that all formations are suffering, one becomes weary of suffering. This is the path to purity.
Precisely. Seeing that inherent unsatisfactoriness in all conditioned things.
How does the text expand on this? What is the suffering? Is it just pain?
It's broader than just physical or mental pain, though it includes those. The text makes a really bold claim. It says birth itself is the root of suffering.
Birth? Why birth?
Because birth inevitably leads to aging, sickness, and ultimately death. This whole package is seen as dukkha. But it goes further.
How so?
It challenges our idea of happiness, even the bliss people might experience in those heavenly realms we talked about.
Yeah.
The text says it's temporary, illusory in a sense. It calls it a fleeting happiness that always reverts to suffering eventually.
Like the high wears off.
Kind of. Or like, human moods change, even the most intense joy fades. The text suggests heavenly bliss is like that, just on a longer time scale maybe. It's not ultimate, unshakable happiness. It's still conditioned, still impermanent, and therefore ultimately unsatisfactory. Dukkha.
That really reframes things. So dukkha isn't just about bad stuff happening. It's the inherent instability and unreliability of all conditioned experiences, even the pleasant ones.
Exactly. It's seeing that deep unsatisfactoriness, and when you truly see that,
then you become weary of suffering.
Yes. You see the futility of chasing lasting happiness in things that are inherently changing and ultimately stressful.
Yeah.
Detachment arises naturally.
Detachment from all these formations, the merit ones, the demerit ones, the imperturbable ones.
All of them. And the text explicitly mentions detachment from existence within the three realms: the realm of desire, the realm of form, the formless realm, and the three cycles of existence: karma, defilement, and the results, or vipaka.
Letting go of the whole cycle.
That letting go, that detachment born of wisdom, is the path to purity, according to this teaching.
Okay. Impermanence leads to seeing suffering. And that leads us, I imagine, to the third characteristic, the most challenging one, maybe. Non-self, anattā.
You could say that. It often feels the most counterintuitive. If everything conditioned is impermanent and unsatisfactory, then what about me? What about the self experiencing all this?
Right. Is there something solid there?
Well, the core statement for anattā is, when one sees with wisdom that all phenomena are not self, one becomes weary of suffering. This is the path to purity.
Okay, phenomena, now Dhamma. How does that relate to formations, Sankara?
The text clarifies that Dhamma, phenomena, are basically present wherever formations exist. They are the elements of experience, the components of reality as we perceive it through the formations.
So, also impermanent and unsatisfactory.
And, crucially, not self. And here the text introduces a really intriguing, almost visual concept. It talks about Dharma globes.
Dharma globes, like spheres.
Yes, exactly. Like subtle energetic cores or spheres associated with different bodies or levels of existence. It's quite detailed.
Tell me more.
Okay, so the text describes this progression.
Oh.
Our ordinary human body, it says, has a Dharma globe. It's described as clear like a chicken yolk.
Huh. Okay.
Then there's a subtle human body, inside the coarse one, with a Dharma globe twice the size of a chicken yolk.
Getting bigger.
And it continues. A Deva body, 3 times the size. A subtle Deva body, 4 times. A Rupa Brahma body, 5 times. Subtle Rupa Brahma, 6 times. A Rupa Brahma, 7 times. And subtle Arupa Brahma, 8 times the size of that initial human globe.
Wow. A whole series of nested bodies and expanding spheres.
Exactly. But here's the absolute key point the text makes about all of this.
What's that?
All these Dharma globes and all the conventional bodies they enable, including everything we normally identify as me, our physical form, our feelings, perceptions, thoughts, consciousness, the 5 aggregates.
Yeah.
All of it is declared to be anattā, not self.
Not self. Even those subtle inner bodies and globes.
Yes. They're described as merely temporary dwelling places for what we conventionally call a self. They're like vehicles or tools, maybe, conditioned phenomena. impermanent,
Yeah.
unsatisfactory, and ultimately empty of any inherent unchanging self.
Okay, my mind is slightly blown here. If all of that is not self, then what is? Is there anything the text points to as a true ultimate self? Or is it just nothingness?
And this is where the teaching takes a profound turn. This is the real aha moment, you could say. The text does introduce something else.
Go on.
It introduces the concept of the Dhammakaya, the body of Dharma.
Dhamma, okay.
And this, the text states, is the actual self. It uses the Pali word atta.
Atta, the word usually translated as self that Buddhism often negates.
Exactly. But here it's reclaimed for the Dhammakaya, and this Dhammakaya is described as having the opposite characteristics of conditioned things. It's anicca, permanent, unchanging, and it's sukha, blissful, true happiness.
So a permanent, blissful, true self. That sounds radically different from the usual interpretation of anattā.
It is a very specific teaching, yes. It makes a sharp distinction. There's the conventional, compounded, impermanent, suffering-prone, not-self reality of the 5 aggregates in those 8 bodies.
Right.
And then there's this other reality, the Dhammakaya, which is permanent, blissful, and the true self, atta.
And does the text describe this Dhammakaya?
It does. It actually lists 10 specific Dhammakaya bodies. They represent stages of enlightenment.
10.
Yes, starting with what's called the Kotrabu Dhammakaya, both gross and subtle, which is like the change of lineage state. Then the Sotapanna, or stream enterer, Dhammakaya, gross and subtle. Sakadagami, once returner, gross and subtle. Anagami, non-returner, gross and subtle. And finally, the Arahant Dhammakaya, gross and subtle.
The fully enlightened state.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the Arahant Dhammakaya body is described explicitly, definitively, as being completely anicca, sukha, atta, utterly free from all defilements, all fetters, the state of supreme, lasting bliss, nirvana realized.
And then these Dhammakayas, are they made of the same stuff as us, the 5 aggregates?
No, that's another crucial distinction. The text says they're composed of dharma aggregates, dhammakanda, and dispassion elements, viraga dhatu, something fundamentally different from the conditioned aggregates of form, feeling, perception, formations, and consciousness.
Wow. Okay. So if attaining this Dhammakaya is the goal, the true refuge, it's not just a concept, it's the actual path to liberation.
That's exactly how the text presents it. It even makes this rather stark statement.
What's that?
It says, few among humans reach the other shore, meaning nirvana, and that many people just skirt the shore. They stay caught in the cycle of existence.
Stuck in samsara.
Right, and the text is unequivocal. Only by attaining the Dhammakaya can one truly cross over, reach nirvana.
So how does one get there? What's the path?
It's described as the one-way path, the ikayana magga, and it involves developing 5 key qualities: morality, sila, concentration, samadhi, wisdom, paññā, liberation, vimutti, and crucially, the knowledge and vision of liberation, vimutti-ñādasana.
Seeing that liberation has been achieved.
Yes, and alongside this, there's a strong emphasis on abandoning what it calls dark qualities, defilements, unwholesome states, and actively cultivating bright qualities like mindfulness, wisdom, compassion.
That makes sense. And this connects to something else profound. The text mentions self-reliance, right?
Absolutely. It quotes those famous lines, Atmadipa attasarana nanyasarana.
Be an island unto yourself. Be a refuge unto yourself. Seek no other refuge.
Yes, and also Dhammadipa dhammasarana nanyasarana.
Let the Dharma be your island. Let the Dharma be your refuge. Seek no other refuge. How does the text interpret these, especially with this idea of the Dhammakaya as the true self?
That's a brilliant question because the text gives it a specific interpretation in light of the Dhammakaya teaching. It distinguishes between 2 levels of self and dharma as refuges.
Okay.
The conventional self and dharma that can be temporary refuges are identified with those 8 bodies we discussed: the human, subtly human, deva, subtle deva, up to the subtle arupa Brahma body and their respective dharma globes.
The ones that are ultimately not self.
Exactly. They're seen as conventional supports, still within the conditioned world, helpful perhaps, but not the ultimate refuge because they are still anicca, dukkha, anattā.
So the ultimate refuge.
The ultimate self, atta, and ultimate dharma. They're the true unshakable island and refuge that's found only in the Dhammakaya itself.
The permanent, blissful, true self.
That's the ultimate refuge, the unconditioned reality, according to this discourse.
Okay, so the billion-dollar question then. How does one actually do this? How does one attain the Dhammakaya, practically speaking? What's the method?
The text describes a very specific and perhaps striking method. It uses the phrase, the heart must stop.
Stop, like literally stop.
No, not physically stop beating. It means the mind. The mind must become completely still, utterly centered, free from wandering thoughts.
Profound stillness.
Samadhi.
Deep samadhi, yes.
Ah.
But it specifies where this stillness needs to begin and deepen. It says this stillness starts right at the center point of the Dharma globe of the ordinary human body.
Yeah.
That initial sphere, clear like a chicken yolk.
Centered right there.
Yes. And by continuing to practice this, stopping, maintaining, and deepening that stillness right at the center, one goes deeper and deeper into the center of that stillness, which allows access to the next level. You move progressively through the center of the human subtle body's globe, then the diva body's globe, the subtle divas, all the way through those 8 levels we talked about.
Following the center point deeper and deeper.
Deeper and deeper, through increasingly refined states of stillness, until, the text says, one finally reaches and penetrates the center of the subtle Arupa Brahma body's globe and attains the first Dhammakaya.
Wow. That's a very direct instruction.
It is. And the text presents this method, this path of centering and stopping the mind, moving through the sequence of subtle bodies via their central points as the only true path to the Dhammakaya. It explicitly states other ways are erroneous.
That's quite definitive.
It is. It reflects the conviction of this particular teaching lineage.
So, wrapping up this section on the path, the ultimate aim is?
The ultimate aim, as the text powerfully concludes, is to truly see nirvana, to directly experience that state beyond suffering. And complementary to that, to really grasp the pervasive suffering, the dukkha, inherent in samsara, this cycle of existence across the 3 realms, especially the lower realms, which arise from defilements.
Seeing both the problem and the solution clearly.
Exactly. And with that profound understanding, to commit wholeheartedly to this path, the path the text says the Buddhas and Arahants took to achieve that supreme, unshakable bliss of the Dhammakaya and Nirvana.
Right. So let's try and bring this all together. What does this mean for us, listening to this today? We've journeyed through some incredibly deep concepts. Universal impermanence, anicca. The inherent unsatisfactoriness, dukkha, even in what seems like joy. And then this really radical twist on non-self, anattā, pointing towards an ultimate true self, the Dhammakaya.
It's a very comprehensive framework.
It really is, and it feels like it demands more than just, nodding along intellectually. It seems to call for a really personal, almost experiential kind of understanding.
I think that's right. This deep dive into the Tilakkhana, especially as presented in this source, it throws down a profound challenge, doesn't it?
How so?
To truly see things as they actually are, beyond our usual assumptions and projections. The text is quite blunt, suggesting many might just skirt the shore, understanding intellectually perhaps, but not making the full journey.
The journey beyond the conventional.
Exactly. Finding that ultimate stable reality, the Dhammakaya within, it's presented as an inner discovery.
Which leads to a really important question, I think, for you listening.
Yes.
If this teaching holds true, if the ultimate path to real, lasting happiness isn't about accumulating more and more of what's inevitably impermanent, but instead lies in realizing, uncovering what this text calls the truly permanent, blissful, and essential self. Well, how might that insight begin to shift your own focus?
Where you place your energy day to day, where you seek your deepest sense of well-being.
Exactly. It's definitely something profound to consider.